Hello. So there's my Sony Interactive Entertainment logo, followed by normal settings, and hopefully we're going to have BleemSync up and running. There we go. So BleemSync is currently running from a USB drive that has been punched into the back of a squid type OTG adapter into the power source and USB of the PlayStation Classic. And what I'm doing here is I'm basically chatting because the amount of time taken for BleemSync to start is what I'm going through. So at the moment, if you take a look at my setup, you'll probably see that my USB light is flicking away while it's trying to start up BleemSync. And this is the USB kit that I'm running. It is just an OTG adapter, what they call an OTG host adapter, that's plugged right into the back of the PlayStation Classic. There's the USB I'm running. It's an 8 gig A-Pacer, and next to it is actually just a wireless dongle, which I haven't configured just yet. And then obviously the HDMI that's running into our capture card to give you an image of what's going on. The reason why I'm just recording this is because it takes an incredible amount of time for BleemSync to start this way. Normally the way it starts using the front USB is much faster. So I just want to kind of give folks an idea of how slow the device is doing the hack this way. The nice thing is, of course, it still works. So if you look at that, at least you can use the controllers on the front of the system, which is still great. Alright, so for intended purposes, I just plugged in a PlayStation 4 controller, which is quite nice as well. Once you do the hack, obviously then you can use the PS4 controller wired into the system. And then it almost outright makes it pointless to use BleemSync, the normal emulator for your PlayStation games, because you can run RetroArch, the games that are on the PlayStation Classic through RetroArch, and it does a much better job, frankly. So that's something important to remember. So I'm just going to give you a quick demonstration, and I'm going to use RetroArch. It's got two screens running, so obviously the one on my right hand side is the one that I'm using, while there's a bit of delay on the one in front of me, just to show you what's going on. Okay, so previously I had used a 16 gig SanDisk stick, and it was taking even longer to boot. So there's clearly something in the type of stick that you use for this mod. And let me just give you an idea of how the games run. I think it's kind of pointless to use. Here's this problem I was facing last time. Yeah, that's something that happened the time before. Sometimes when you run through the menu quite quickly, it seems like it wants to carry on running, or it skips a couple of options. I think that also has to do with accessing the USB. So let's jump straight to a ROM that I have actually on the stick. Let's go and find those quickly. Let's go from, no, let's not use Metal Slug. Let's go to the main menu and load content, and then I'm just going to go find the spot where I've got my stick under media. I've got my RetroArch ROMs here, and let's try a Final Burn ROM, and I'll use, it's still working better than it did with a 16 gig stick. I used to scroll down with a 16 gig stick, and sometimes it would jump 8 or more down for no reason. Let's try 2002. It's a big ROM and generally fails occasionally. Alright, so this will give us an idea of how long it takes to load the ROM after I choose the Final Burn core. Again, this is still working better than the 16 gig stick that I used. At the moment our USB drive is flashing on and off as it's accessing the data. So this is an actual time. It gives you an idea of how long it takes to load the ROM up. But once it starts, it'll tell you that it's configured a specific controller. And I've just purchased a USB 3.0 stick to see if I can improve the speed somewhat. RetroArch will be able to use the wireless dongle to actually have NetPlay enabled. So you'll be able to use a PlayStation Classic for netplay using RetroArch. And we're still waiting. So this one takes quite long. To be fair, this ROM is quite large. If you're using something like King of Fighters 97, it should be a bit faster. Alright. Cool. Alright, well, you know, everything runs quite well. So, I mean, that gives you an idea generally of how quickly it takes to load a ROM. Obviously, smaller ROMs will be a lot faster, things like NES. The game runs fine. Yeah, so that's pretty much that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the booting from the player 2 side, just to give you an idea of the speed difference. So let's quickly exit out of here. Okay, so that's back to our main menu, and we can quit RetroArch. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset the console now, and then I'm going to remove the stick and place it in the player 2 side, just to give you an idea of how quickly it boots by comparison. There we go, console off, just waiting for the light to flash to amber. Excellent, and then I'm going to pop this stick now into the player 2 side, and then boot up to give you an idea of how quickly the difference is. Alright, so we get our splash screen, and even before the splash screen is finished, we're straight into BleemSync. So we waited a very long time on this splash screen before we actually got any notification that things were running, but this one takes much faster. Alright, and there we are, straight into RetroArch. Back again, much faster. So yes, it does work. It's just a bit slow. So let's try the same thing again. We'll go into main menu, we will load content, find the same game. It is King of Fighters 2002. It was that one. And we'll just load this one using Neo Geo Core. Give it some time. Still a large ROM, but you can see it's much faster. Alright, so the recommendation really for this is if you're going to set this thing down to a one-player affair, it would make more sense to plug it into the player 2 side and just carry on from there. Alternatively, 2 players, if you really want to play and you have the option to use the OTG adapter, then you can play 2 players without interference. I think it is personally just nice to have the OTG adapter outright because it's less clutter to move sticks backwards and forwards. So you can just keep it with the system the entire time, and you can enjoy your gaming that way. Okay, something I think that's also pretty important to mention is that when you're playing the internal games on the PlayStation system itself, choosing these games here allow you to play them in full widescreen. So again, that's kind of important, and they do support save states as well. So it's nice to be able to play things using, again, a regular PlayStation 4 controller, wired. And I mean, obviously there are options to use wireless controllers with dongles, so you can do that too. Fortunately, that's what RetroArch allows. It allows you to use any controller on the PlayStation Classic, which is also quite nice. And here we are playing Tekken in full screen. Also, you can choose to have an NTSC option, but I have discovered that you are still playing the PAL version of the game using an NTSC frame rate. Okay, let's go.
Round 2.
Orbital heal. Back. This game is still so much fun. I mean, it's janky as hell, but it's fun. Also, having options inside the game for specific types of renderers and such things as scan lines, if you wish to have scan lines, are nice. Whereas the normal BleemSync options don't have as many. So you can choose graphic rendering options in BleemSync as well, but I generally prefer using RetroArch. It's quite a shame really then, because Sony could have just used RetroArch in the PlayStation Classic and it would have done a better job than the one that they used. Having things like full screen in today's age is, I would have thought, pretty standard, but apparently not. Anyway, that's that for now. So yeah, I'm gonna try the USB 3.0 and see if there's much more of a speed boost to it. Even though, I mean, basically we won't be getting 3.0 speeds, but we're getting the best of the 2.0 speed. So I'll give that a go and then perhaps report back on that as well. Cheers.